Miho Suzuki. Editor of Department, Karen Bartek. Costume designer, Paula Bradley. Production designer, Matthew Flood Ferguson. Casting director, Tiffany Little Canfield. Yeah, some actors here, I think. Ari Reeder, who plays Leslie Abramson. Nathan Lane, who plays Dominic Gunn. Chloë Sevigny, who plays Mary Louise Kitty Menendez. Javier Bardem, who plays Koch, who plays Erik Menendez. Chavez, who plays Lyle Menendez. And we have co-creator, executive producer, and writer. Please welcome Ryan Murphy. Thank you so much for being here. I'm afraid we're out of time now after those intros and applause, but we'll persevere. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on a wonderful series. I want to start with Ryan, obviously, because, I mean, this show has been a huge commercial success, critical success, but there's something more to it, which is that you might have actually affected lives with this production. I believe they're talking about rehearing Lyle and Erik's case. I mean, look, really good reviews are nice, but that's got to be better than like any great review. To know that you've actually maybe made a difference in our justice system.
Yeah, I can't say I was unsurprised, because when we finished shooting it and I saw the episodes, I sort of thought they were incredibly powerful on several different points of view. And that was always the purpose of the show, was to show different complicated points of view. But I thought really what it did about raising and asking questions about sexual abuse was very, very powerful. And I think, there's love it or not, there's a movement with young people who want to talk about that in a way that wasn't available in 1989. So whether you believe them or not is kind of beside the point. What it did, I think, which is why I wanted to make it, was to launch a conversation about that topic. And people were really drawn to it, and a lot of people got involved and made their opinions known after they watched the show, which was very, very interesting. Kim Kardashian called me a month before the show came out and asked to see it, and I said, sure, she's a friend, and she is somebody who's very into prison reform, and she instantly got involved, and the DA and the governor's office were flooded with a lot of reactions from people who had big opinions about the show. So I do think it led to something interesting, and more important to me, when you make something, whether people love it or hate it is beside the point, but does it launch a conversation about something? And I think the show definitely did that in a way that Ian and I were very proud of that.
Absolutely. I want to start with this amazing cast because the Menendez brothers have, sort of been in the public eye for, I guess, the last 35 years. I'm curious, what did you know or think you knew about this story when you came to the project, and what drew you to your roles? We'll go ahead and start with Cooper.
Well, first, I'm admiring all.
Yes, I know, it's
stars
beautiful.
in here.
And the colors change, I just realized. It was white in here earlier.
I love colors. I grew up in Woodland Hills in Calabasas, which is where the family first moved to when they moved to California. And so I found out, I heard about it. So I had known a lot about it, and I'd watched some of the trial footage and testimony, and
Wait, you would have been like 2 years old.
Yeah, no. I just.
Oh, you mean back in? Oh, I don't.
Yeah,
when I live. Okay.
Yeah, when I was in high school and when I was older. Yeah, no. So yeah, and I was always just fascinated by it and moved by their stories and their testimony, and yeah, it's just a very interesting and fascinating story.
Mm. And for you?
I wasn't familiar with the story until I got the audition, and then once I caught that, you're trying to do an expedited research process, right? So you're trying to learn as much as you can as fast as possible so that you don't make a fool of yourself in the room once you audition for Ryan Murphy. But yeah, it was an ongoing journey in terms of what we were able to learn, and then marrying that with the scripts that were written for us.
But I just want to pause before we get to the other actors, because this is such a great cast of like faces we recognize, but also newer faces. And I wanted to ask your casting director as well, how many people did you have to see in order to find your Erik and your Lyle?
Well, Tiffany, I don't want her name, but we talked a lot about it. And you know, it was funny when we were starting this process, I always knew that I wanted Javier Bardem and Chloe and Nathan Lane. I've worked with three of them for a long time. So when you go into a project, you're like, you plant your tent poles, right? And we did that. And then Tiffany and I had a long conversation about, I think the best way to go about the show is to find people that people really are sort of new people, fresh voices, and that's what we wanted with Lyle and Erik. So Tiffany worked particularly hard for like, I believe 6 months, something like that, just constant auditioning, and she should talk about her process. But I will say that it was like, we called it like the Scarlett O'Hara search, like it just went on and on and on, and it's that thing like, you know, when you fall in love, you're like, no, 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 and then suddenly you hit their audition video, and I just instantly felt, yes, like those are our guys, like they are the ones. And in a process like this, you have to have a lot of approvals, and a lot of people weigh in. And usually there's a very, you know, when you do network and studio auditions, you usually bring 5 or 6 people per part, and you bring them in and you see them all, and then there's a conversation. But I didn't want to do that, because I sort of felt like if I don't have these 2 guys, then I just don't want to make it. So for the final comeback, they showed up and it was only them. Wow. And they were sort of shocked, like just sitting in a room looking around. And I just was open, and I said, I believe in you, and I think your work is amazing. And they auditioned several times. So I said, you know, I believe in you, and I don't want you to feel that you have any competition, because for me and Tiffany and you don't. Yeah. So we just brought them into a room, and they met each other, I think, the first time, and they did 3 or 4 scenes together, and that was it. And we sent in our audition, and I believe I called them a couple hours later and said, Netflix saw it and loves you, and you have the part. So it felt very special. Tiffany, you should talk.
Yes, and Tiffany, you didn't just have to find Scarlett O'Hara, you had to find 2 Scarlett O'Haras.
Yes, that was, and also we had scripts, so it was really clear what we needed on the talent department, right? Not just that these are based on real people and how they look, but like the talent. So we reached out to conservatories and, you know, the theater scene, as well as, of course, agents, managers, and an open call, you know. So we really tried to cover the gamut, and it doesn't surprise me we ended up with 2 brilliant, trained, professional actors who came in and took these parts, claimed them.
All right, give me a number. Are we talking, you saw 100 people, 200?
I think it was way
5
more than
million.
that. I think it was approximately 1.275 million.
But also for our audition, when their final audition wasn't even an audition, it was like a coronation. You know, we gave them each of them had to do one of the most difficult scenes that they would have over the run of the series as part of their audition. So it was just very rewarding about how it worked. And then, you know, also in the casting process for me and for Tiffany, you know, there were just amazing, tremendous surprises, like Ari's audition, you know, for Leslie, and how she was just so spectacular and was so that person that it was like, okay, done. The casting process is so thrilling, and I'd known her work, and I'd always wanted to work with her, and so I was thrilled that I finally got to. It's like, it's a very, I always cast things in different ways, you know, but this was a really fun thing to do, and I'm glad that Tiffany and I saw it the same way.
And going back to the actors, Javier, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is your first series role. Is that correct?
Yeah, Okay, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, thank you. And thank God I didn't do any audition for this. I've never been hired. I mean, I'm so bad in auditions. I hear you, all the process. It's amazing what an actor has to go through in order to get a job. How hard it is to be able to sustain the creativity when the pressure is so on. In the case of you guys, knowing that it could be life changer experience as it is, no, and even though being able to give the very best of yourselves, I mean, it always amazes me the fact that an actor can really perform in an audition. I've done some, but
At some point.
Thank God I didn't do for this case. What was the question?
Oh, what did you know about this case, or sort of think?
Nothing. I live in Spain. I don't know anything about it. I only know about tapas and pie. But I know Ryan. We were in Bali together. Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah. And he called me and I said, yeah, sure. And then I read it and I said, fuck. Jose Menendez, what a guy. Okay. But I always felt protected, safe in his hands. And one thing that I know for sure is that, I mean, he's an amazing artist and he always does this thorough research on everything he does. And he surrounds himself with the very best that you can find on this industry. So creatively speaking, no doubt, it was more about, okay, how are we going to talk about these very delicate issues? And we sat down and he expressed to me how he considered it was the best way to show it and not show it. And I loved it and I went full into the process.
Wow. And Chloe, for you, you've obviously worked with Ryan before, so I don't know if it's just an immediate yes when you see his name come up.
It wasn't immediate yes. Yes, he called. He kind of talked to me a bit about, the series and what he wanted to say with the series. And I said yes. And then I read the scripts and I had the same reaction as Javier. I was like, fuck, can we do this? Can we show this? Do we want to? I was like, has Javier read these? And I think I called you back and was like, how are we going to do this? You're like, it's implied. I was like, oh, it's pretty heavily implied. And then also knowing that I was going to have to play different versions of this woman.
Yeah.
Was very exciting to me, very challenging as an actor, because normally you're searching for this one truth and you're playing the truth of this character. And here I'm playing different interpretations of her. And I thought that was going to be a really exciting kind of challenge. I've never had the opportunity to do that before, and I think also to show a mother that is, struggling in the way that this woman did. I think you rarely see that on screen, and I know a lot of mothers, personally friends that are mothers that are challenged by it and their relationships with their kids, and I thought that was just something that people don't really talk about. So yeah, there was a lot there to mine.
You mentioned Nicholas and Cooper. You met at sort of he calls it a coronation, which I love more than the audition. When did the four of you meet? Because this family dynamic, it really feels lived in for all the good and bad that entails.
We had a rehearsal in the den for the scene, the murder scene, and yeah, they walked in and we hugged and Ryan came and we all talked about what we wanted to do and and then we just started rehearsing.
So you hugged and then you shot them.
Yeah.
We rehearsed for 2 days, then we shot that sequence over 4 days, and I mean, I have to say, just to Ryan, not to be kiss ass, but he was so present and available for all of us all the time, and I really respect that, just because he's such a busy man, and all the writers and the directors would call us, give us their numbers, it was so much open dialogue, and everybody felt very safe and very heard, and I found that really refreshing because I hadn't really I've done a lot of television, I'm a seasoned professional, but I hadn't had that kind of access before, that kind of the stream of communication. I thought that was really an incredible thing that they provided us all with.
And Nathan, for you, you're not only playing a real person, but someone who I think a lot of people remember pretty vividly. What did you know, or think you knew about Dominic Dunne in this story? And do you feel an extra pressure because it is a real person?
I knew a little about Dominic. I once got a note from him when I was doing a play on Broadway, and he had been there to see it, and he just thanked me for giving him such an entertaining evening.
Sorry, what show? I'm dying to know.
I have no idea. It's a long time ago. But I remember getting a note from Dominic Dunne, so maybe that was a sign, an omen. So I knew that he wrote for Vanity Fair, and then just started doing research as you do, and I talked to his son Griffin, who was extremely helpful and gracious, and he had just finished writing this book, The Friday Afternoon Club, this memoir of his childhood, and so I got an advance copy of that, and that was very helpful, and certainly there's a lot of video of him being interviewed. But I remember saying, Griffin, there had been another book about Dominic that he wasn't happy with. And I said, well, how would you like to see your father portrayed? And he said, I just want people to know that trial, the trial of John Sweeney, who murdered his daughter, and how it changed his life forever, personally and professionally, and which is why he became such a passionate advocate for victims. And so when I was sent the first 4 scripts, and I thought, well, I feel like that's a huge arc for this character, and they've really captured that. I mean, the writing was just exceptional, so that's a big part of it, when the writing is that good.
I mean, Dominic Dunne in and of himself is such a fascinating figure, but I love that you took the time to sort of dedicate some of the story to his backstory, which obviously affected him so deeply, and his work.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the Monster show is that it asks the question, who is the monster? How are monsters, are they made, are they born? And in this season in particular, there's many different types of monsters, and I thought, Dominique's killer and what he did to her and what he did to her family, that was a different sort of vein we could talk about, and how monstrous behaviors really tear apart families. The family was always at the center of what we were trying to write about this season. So yeah, it's kind of, interesting. We just 2 days ago started working on season 3, which is about Ed Gein, and there's many different monsters in society in that story as well. So that's the fascinating thing to write to, about cultural monstrosities, I think.
Ari, I have such vivid memories of the first trial and of Leslie. She had such a specific look and sound and feel. How much do you feel, behold, you don't want to do an imitation, but like you very much capture her spirit, you sort of channel that, but you also do look and sound like her. How important was it to you to have both those things?
Well, it's funny to hear I look and sound like her. I'm like,
in this, thanks to these wonderful artists. Oh yeah.
No, I mean, her look is so iconic. Her voice is so iconic. She's got, she's really got a thing. And so yeah, I watched and read, and I think what was so extraordinary about these scripts and the writing, the first thing I ever read, and really the only things I read before I auditioned were 2 scenes. It was the scene when you first meet her at the adoption agency, and the first time she meets Erik. And Ryan and Ian and all the writers are so extraordinary, and to see that this is how they were introducing her, talking about adopting a child and what happens when kids don't get the love that they need. It was this total other insight and insight into her that was another level besides her sort of, you know, brassy nuclear strength pain in the ass, I think as the LA Times once called her. So I just really wanted to honor that, the love that I think she had, and the passion and fairness for the system, and that was so much of how she grew up, and so much of her history, and listening to her book through her own voice. She did the audiobook and would sleep with that, and really wanted to just squeeze all the juice I could, because also, as Javier says, it's like, you know, it's hard to be an actor and pound the pavement and auditions and all that stuff, and I knew that Ryan was just giving me such an extraordinary gift with Leslie, and I just wanted to try to get her as much as I could. So.
Before we move on to talking about these amazing crafts, I just want to touch on episode 5 is primarily the What more do I need to say? Such a powerhouse episode, and it's primarily the two of you. I mean it as a compliment when I say it feels like a play, because we never...
Yeah, no, it's a play.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
We rehearsed it like a play.
Really? I mean, but when you found out it was going to be all in one take like that, were you excited or terrified or all of the above?
But yeah, everything. It's written that way in the script. Before there's any dialogue, it talks about how it's one shot. So I knew when I read it that it was going to be that way, and I was so happy that it ended up being that way, because, you know, things can change, writing changes, and we you'll get to a certain point where, like, no, we're going to actually go this way, but it stayed the same way the whole time. The script never changed, and we were always going to do it that way. Yeah.
Wow. How long did it take to shoot?
Well, we wrote it that way. When we were writing it, we knew it was sort of dramaturgically, it was Erik's talking about his past, specifically the very famous hurt man quote that he had. So when we were writing it, it was written the first time, I think, much more traditionally. And when I read it, I said to Ian, I think we should do something that is terrifying here. And I think, you know, and I knew that Cooper and Ari were very talented, but I hadn't seen them really do anything when we were finishing it. So I said, let's do it all in one shot. So we built, and we knew that very early on, so we built a special set that could have a camera that could literally be moving for like 30 minutes. We did special lighting tests, and we ended up, I think, rehearsing it 3 days in a row, because not only do you have to rehearse it, but you have to have your director and your director of photography know where the camera needs to be for certain words, and with the camera operators practice that move several times so that you could end on that excruciating close-up that we did. So we rehearsed it for 3 days.
No, we only did, no, we did one rehearsal.
We did one rehearsal.
Well, the DP
did it.
Oh, gotcha,
we rehearsed it in the room trying to, because like
We did one rehearsal.
That was also maybe by design, because
Yeah.
I knew they were very excited, but we shot it 10 times over 3 days. Or 2 days?
2 days.
8 full times over 2 days.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And as I recall, you never dropped a line.
I was going to ask, you don't want to be the person who, you know, minute 37 suddenly flips the line.
No, you do not. As the person off camera, I was like, if I miss a line, I will literally end it all right now. This is crazy. But no, what he did was just the most extraordinary thing ever.
It was also very rewarding, because I felt that by the last time that we did it, I mean, I don't want to speak for Cooper or Ari, but I think you guys kind of felt that you figured it out by that last take, and that's the one we used, correct?
Really?
Yeah, I think the second day, all 4 of the takes felt new and different and interesting and held different moments, and we found new stuff, and I think I was happy with any of the takes from the second day, if they chose, whichever one they chose, and I didn't know which one it was after I watched it for the first time, and then you called me and told me it was the last one.
Yeah. I feel bad that they only had 1 day to rehearse.
No,
We want to keep it fresh, too,
We-
to a degree.
Yeah.
we would have done it more, but we did it, and then Michael didn't want to. He wanted it to just let us.
Cooper was also too busy acting.
Yeah. Well, that must have been exhausting too. Did you go home those days and just collapse?
We
We were
went.
so excited because it felt, I mean, from what I witnessed, everybody who made that, the whole show with that episode was so thrilled with the theatricality of it and the goal of, you know, when you're doing something like that, everybody has to be communicating and be on the same page. And it's like being in an athletic event where you win, you're like, we did it. Like, it felt like a group.
We went to Ari's porch and had wine and ate sushi.
Nice.
Spent a lot of time on my porch,
Yeah.
Cooper and I. We lived 5 minutes apart from each other while we were shooting, so there was a lot of pre
porch
games and
games.
post games. We might have even driven together that day and then got in the pool and had the wine, had the sugarfish.
I was jokingly gonna ask about sugarfish. By the way, you say the camera's not on you, which is honestly not true because you can still see everything you're doing and you can hear it in your voice. And I just want to, ask Cooper, like, could you have done this without her? I mean, like, what a great set partner.
There's absolutely no way I could have done it without her. She held such beautiful space for me, and she became Leslie, which I think allowed me to be Erik, and I mean, I'm the only person who got to see her performance.
Yeah,
Which
every single
I feel-
time too. She was there for you.
I feel so lucky
That's
that I got to
amazing.
witness that. You're extraordinary, and I love you very much.
I do want to ask her about a below-the-line artist because, I was born in Redacted, but I sort of grew up during this time, and I cannot believe how well you captured this era. It's really incredible. It's such a time capsule of the 80s and the 90s. Sort of as the heads of your respective departments, how did you go about capturing, the essence of the time period and accurately depict it on screen?
Well, for me, it's a lot of research. And I really love to go to bookstores and scour any book that I can find that inspires me. I also grabbed the old Los Angeles magazine covers to look at those. And I lived in the 80s as well. I didn't live in LA, but I lived in the 80s, so I drew from life experience. And with my team, we put together the world that is the Menendez.
I mean, and Ryan, how much do you, I mean, I know you have your fingers in everything, but are there massive discussions with,
yeah.
with everyone together so
Yeah.
you're all on the same page?
Whenever I do anything, I always have like a general first concept meeting with all of the department heads, pretty much on every episode. And we talk about, what I like to do is talk about, this is the reason why I want to make this. This is what it's about. And then this is the tone of it. And this is the feeling of it and the light of it. And here are reference photos and movies I'm interested in, photography I'm interested in. So people have a lot of visual clues. But then the fun of it for me is working with these world-class artists and saying, you interpret it the way you want to. So everybody has a lot of agency to come and try things and style things. It was very interesting when we were coming up with the visual language of this, because I had a color in mind, and sometimes I like to do things like, okay, this season the color is X, and it does nothing but inspire you to think of it. So this season, this happened right when I moved to LA. I was 1989. I was a journalist, and I had lived here for 2 months, and then this incident happened. So for me, it was very formative. I was a reporter then. I don't know. I like to give people a key insight as to why I want to make something and let them do it.
Yeah, this season was blue.
I was going to
And
ask.
so Dahmer was a dingy yellow. And so Ryan,
Yeah.
he talked about it exactly and said, this color is going to be blue. And so it's a great starting point for us to kind of build off of as kind of a base. And so it's a kind of a game and how to incorporate it and carry it through the entire show.
And I want to talk about the hair and the makeup and the costumes because they're so accurate. I don't know if you were able to source actual things from that time period, or if you had to kind of create some from scratch.
Well, first of all, yes, we we sourced a lot, and because we live in Los Angeles, there
Yeah.
are a lot of people and dealers here who are geared to the film industry. And I'm glad that you think much of the clothing, because we really, Ryan always, from the get-go, I can tell you my first knowing of Ryan. Blue skies, LA, I wanted to look like LA and blue, the blue skies and all the colors and the color blocking, and then I wanted desaturated, and that for me told me the story. Then I knew. And also because I was a fashion student in the 80s, and the 80s is a very complex decade. We have this joke about the 80s, but the 80s is not a joke. It was a birth of a lot of design, a lot of Japanese design, a lot of different cultural. And LA, I'm being from England, LA is a little different for me because I didn't experience the 80s in LA. So I also like to do a lot of research in books and things. I stole some from Matthew. We also have a producer called Lou, who has been with Ryan since the very beginning, and actually I PA'd on Ryan's very first popular pilot. But that I knew that from that was the information, and creativity is so big that you want a parameter, and that was the starting point, and I understood that from the big blue skies and selling LA to somebody who didn't live in LA, what that meant, to the desaturation, and when we get to the prison and after the murders. And then I had total fun, and then I had fun. Because first of all, I've got a family who are actually way better looking than me.
Well, when you met your family, I was like, damn.
I'm working with a family who are way better looking. And this is my 5th show with Ryan, and everything's very, it's real and then elevated. And so actually, I had so many costumes, and I had such a good time, and I'm very, very grateful, and thank you.
I would be so tempted to keep so many things from this show. You don't have to tell us if you did, but just not once.
I don't want to keep anything. I'm on another show, like with,
Yeah.
you know,
At the end of a show, you're kind of ready to walk away from it.
Yeah.
No.
I took something. Paula gave me some stuff.
Oh yeah, what was it?
I got my Cavarici pants from episode 2.
Nice. Good choice.
I stole a tennis bag too. Sorry.
Karen, this is such a it's a weird compliment, but what I want to say, I think many people agree with me. Nothing takes you out of a show faster than a bad wig, and these are spectacular. But in addition to that, you had this incredible task of making Lyle's wig, which says so much about that character and really does have to look good, but also look like a wig. It's like, it's so meta the more that I think about it. Where did you even begin?
Well, I did a lot of research on,
Mike.
I did a lot of the research on the Menendez boys. I remember, because I grew up in the 80s in LA, and we had a wig made for him, and then we had a side piece and a top piece. But the wig didn't really work, because with Ryan's keen eye, he didn't want it to look over the top and too 80s, because you can go so, it could get so bad really fast. Because the 80s, I went to beauty school in the 80s, and the 80s was not great hair. But we ended up using, of course, the toupee and the side piece for his bald reveal. Yeah, it was just, doing camera tests and,
And Lyle's wig was always a character.
Yes.
Such a character. It was so about his vulnerability and the father's point of view. So we spent a lot of time working on getting that right, and working with Nicholas too, so that he felt comfortable. And it was that was like a supporting character in the show.
Yeah. How much does it add pressure on hair and on makeup, to that you're, portraying these real people? Because you have to obviously take that into consideration, but also we don't necessarily need like a carbon copy.
Exactly, yeah. It was really just whatever worked for the actor to make them look the part, but not too over the top. And I find with putting wigs on people, sometimes if they're too perfect and they don't move, they look like a wig.
Yeah.
So luckily for the 80s, like with Leslie's, that wig just, it became her. Like she just wore it and it looked like it was her hair to me.
And there really is no Leslie without.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And Ari just, she left her wig.
Sure did.
And Neil, for you, do you have discussions with the actors about, because actors come to things and they know these characters better than anyone lots of times. So I think of it as a collaboration, but sort of curious where you begin.
Yeah, definitely. We would like to hear what they have in mind, but also coming to this project, I was so excited to work for Ryan because it's not very many occasions that you get to work for a project that they really care about.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times it's not the most important thing, and so for me to bring in a little bit of a highlight in so the light catches the little things that we get to do and play and make them look like Hollywood stars. It's that contrasted later time when they were in prison. They really had a lot of fun doing, not so much fun because it was fun doing it.
It's okay to have fun.
You know, it was really great creative challenge.
Yeah.
And then Javier's look was, when I saw that day of transformation, you had an eyebrow covered, because your eyebrows is such a significant look. And then to hide that, and then here it is, and then when Ryan came into the makeup trailer, I saw the makeup test, the magic happened that day. And then that was, I had a great team to work with, and Sabine Wilson, Michael Milas, such a talented makeup artist to bring their game to, bring things to the table, and I'm grateful that we got to that.
Can I just also want to say that we're really grateful. You can, probably get an understanding of their personalities a little bit. And every morning, in dealing with the subject matter that we were, I'm sure Nicholas and Cooper can speak on this even further. Just to be with these women that were so warm and welcoming and took care of us in such a gentle way, that was really incredible. So thank you, ladies.
Yeah, they really did. Miho not only put my makeup on, but she also would do Reiki on me.
You're kidding?
Yes.
It's amazing.
And she would give me messages and words, and even sometimes if this was an emotional scene, when she would come and touch me up, and she would be done, but maybe the cameras were still working, I would just hold her hand, and she would hold me, and we would close our eyes, and she would give me this energy, and she was both of them were such they became mothers to me, and held so much beautiful space, and really I couldn't have done it without both of them. So thank you both.
And as actors, how much does it help? Because you can do so much research into your character and your role, but then you step on set and there's these amazing sets that look like they're right, out of the time period. You put on those costumes, you put on that hair and makeup. Does that sort of help lock the final piece in for you?
It was eerie for me, growing up in the 80s, the sense memory of some of those electronics and stuff. I was like, oh God, I can't, my own drum's coming up now. I'm going from this telephone or TV or whatever it was.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we were talking about this earlier, that I had this scene, a lunch scene at Spago, and they recreated the entire restaurant at the original location, down to plates and the napkins and the chairs, the mesh. What were they? Metal mesh. Yeah, it was astonishing, and yeah, it was great to be back in the 80s, without the cocaine.
I was just gonna say, knowing the way that the house looked from research and pictures, and that was really exciting to walk in there for the first time and see the den and just the foyer, and I loved having Erik's room and seeing, it felt like it was my home, and it was for 6 months, it was so beautiful. I was so impressed every day.
Sorry, did you?
I was going to add something. For Erik's room, my mother-in-law's house was for sale in Louisiana, and there were these curtains from the 80s that she had, and I loved them, and they looked like a Nagel print. And so I contacted the owner and had them shipped, and they were in his room. And that actually started the design of that whole room from those curtains.
Wow, it's nice to hear about a son-in-law who likes his mother-in-law too.
Yes.
Javier, what was it like for you? Because it's what's so great about this is you do look very different, but I don't think about you wearing makeup. But the first time you sort of saw the transformation, I mean, did it kind of freak you out?
Me?
Yeah.
I freak out myself many times when it's something very useful. I mean, the whole team. We were talking before about the show is very dramatic and speaks about many very heavy issues, but the way it was made was with lots of love, attention, care, a lot of work. But I think everybody was taking very good care of each other, and that's what made this experience very special and unique, because I think we went deep into a lot of heavy stuff, but we came back safe because we were surrounded by beautiful people doing things with lots of love, and if there is something that the show shows is that the lack of love can really perpetuate pain for generations. And I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, my look. I was obsessed with the eyebrows because I think his eyes were very important, and when I saw the pictures of him, these thin eyebrows were very important in that face. That was very kind of uncomfortable to look at, and Ryan was open to try it, and we did it, and it worked out. They did a great job.
I know it's acting. I also know that sometimes your body doesn't know the difference when you're traumatizing it and doing these scenes, and specifically for Nicholas and Cooper. Was it ever challenging at the end of the day to sort of go home and really? Did you have a way to sort of prepare for the really intense scenes?
Yeah, your central nervous system doesn't really know the difference, right? So you got to have a way to shake it off at the end of the day. But I'm very fortunate in that I have a really lovely family, and I was just able to give them a call if I had a particularly hard day.
Was that like every day though?
No, not every day, because some of the days Miho's putting big prosthetic lips on you. And,
well, that's right.
Yeah,
so that was a fun day.
Doing like prison escape type stuff. So yeah, I mean, there was a healthy mix, and it's
I think it's also like a learning curve. Like in the beginning, the first couple of episodes, you're working like every day. It's 14-hour days. So not only is it sometimes emotional exhaustion or emotional hangover, but you're just exhausted from working all day. So I think it took figuring out the nimble way to be able to step in and step out. And sometimes, yes, it was like very emotional, and you would go home and it would feel dark. But I think by the end, I got a handle on how to, go home, turn the lights on, take a shower, and let it go.
Yeah. Before we go, I actually want to come back to Tiffany, because I know we have so many actors here, and Javier. See, hearing that Javier struggled with auditions, I think is very inspiring to everyone who's ever been in one of those rooms, because it is such a different skill from being on a set. Is there anything actually, Brian, maybe if you could jump in on this too, is there anything you would want actors to know coming into that room that might help them, might put their minds at ease, things that you're looking for, or just if it's an essence?
It's funny because it's one of the biggest questions actors ask me. What are you looking for? What stands out in the self-tape? And at the end of the day, the answer is always the same: good acting. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for collaborators. And I think that's the thing people forget. They try to get into our heads, what are you looking for? Well, you're not psychic. You're not going to know. You need to see what you think is good and bring your artistry and your technique. So that's what I'm looking for as a collaborator.
And Brian, for you, I mean, you've always had a fantastic eye for like new and up and coming talent specifically. What do you credit that to?
I don't know, you know, when I first started writing scripts, I was so adamant about like through the script, telling actors what to do. So that's the amateur beginning where you're like, you'd have a character and then a parenthetical, joyously, angry, furious. And, you know, and the older I've gotten, the more experience I have, I don't do that a lot anymore. And what I'm always interested in, you know, and the reason why I think Nicholas and Cooper and Ari got these parts from an audition that led to meetings and things like that was because they took a shot and were brave and interpreted it through their own lens. And when I saw their audition, they were not trying to please me or trick me or win me over. They were interpreting it through their point of view, and that's what I long for, is a point of view. And something that surprises me and makes me think like, oh, I never thought of it that way. That's better than what I thought of. Because when you write something, you hear it and you just put in what you hear. But it's like music, so if somebody else sings your song in a different voice, that's fascinating. And that's what I always look for in auditions when and I like a brave choice. So whenever I talk to young people, I'm always like, you got one shot, why sit in a box? Go for it, be bold, and when you read something, try and have a very strong point of view back, because that's what I long for, is a conversation with all of these people who are all great artists. You know, it's a back and forth, and so many times in the casting session, Tiffany will put someone in front of me that I'm like, I never would have thought of that person for that. But that's her interpretation. Like, that's an artistic choice. I guess the word is choice.
Yeah. Well, again, I want to thank you for being here, and congratulations, just like not only on a great series, but a very meaningful one. I'm curious to see how this plays out. And I want to thank you for being a great audience. This show is currently streaming all episodes on Netflix. Again, thank you all so much for being here.